So are you gonna ask me questions that you have, or are you just gonna read me stuff from people's questions, attendees' questions?
I can do whatever we need to do. Actually, I don't have anything set up for me to do, but I do have the chat up here, and so if you'd like me to, I absolutely can watch that for questions and then relay those to you.
Sure.
And we do have participants, so go ahead.
Yeah, but typically when you go to a convention, people want to sit back and not talk. They want to sit and watch, and that's the thing. Like if usually if you're at a panel at a convention, people tend to sit back and not want to participate. So I don't know if anybody's going to actually ask questions. They might, because they're not being seen. So maybe they will. But so anybody that's watching, if you have any questions, that's what this is all about. I'm here to answer whatever.
Oh.
Hopefully anybody that's attending was able to get the link to my page where I have my art show set up. Oh, you just disappeared.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
But it's just you on the video now.
Gotcha. So I know they have like a gallery set up where my art is being seen, I guess, at the website, but then there is a link to my website, but there's an art show set up there for Mile High, and prints available and merchandise available. There's links there at the at the page. So hopefully people are getting to it to see it. I know the first day there's somebody came on, an attendee came on and mentioned that his wife was looking at it, so it works. So hopefully more people are doing that. Anyway, I don't want to sit here for an hour and not talk or do anything. So if no one's going to ask questions, I should probably talk about something. I could show you my latest. This is not in the art show actually. So this is I call it Flabbergast, and it is so you can see it, oil on wood. So it's like actually wood, and so you don't even need to frame it, which is cool. And it's quite different painting on wood because it's like because of the texture, you can't. I typically paint fairly thin, and so to paint on wood, it sucks it right in. Even though I do coat it, I coat it before I paint on it with some matte medium, so it helps it to not totally get sucked into the wood. But you can't paint quite as thin as you can when it's on a regular board. So let me see, what else do I have? If you go to my website, the link that was given out takes you to a page on my website that says MileHiCon Art Show, and there's a merchandise link, and this is a clock with a monkey on it. This is one of my paintings, but it takes you to a page where you can purchase clocks, and I have tote bags, which is pretty cool. There's another tote bag. Another tote bag. So that's pretty cool. What artists inspire me? Wow. I mean, I started out with Michael Whalen, Boris Vallejo, and the Hildebrands were probably the first three. Hildebrands being the brothers, but one brother is no longer with us. So, but they were my early influence. I mean, nowadays there's so many artists that I look at now, so it's hard to say. I mean, recently I've been looking at, I look at Instagram a lot, so I've been noticing a lot of painters from all over the place. So, but lately there've been this comic artist named Ryan Brown, who does these really crazy. He's from the UK, I believe, and his is mostly comic art, but really detailed. I mean, really dynamic looking art. I love Brahm. Brahm's probably one of my favorites. I've known him for quite a while. He used to work at Dungeons and Dragons, and he was no longer on staff. He was living in town though, so I got to meet him and become friends with him, which was pretty cool. And I've always been a fan of his work. You know, Donato Giancola, of course, everybody should know him by now. Michael Whalen is still one of my favorites. He probably is my favorite, is Michael Whalen, I would have to say. So, but there's so many guys. I mean, lots of people from all over the world that some names I can't even pronounce, but yeah, there's just so many talented people out there. So, trying to see if I can show you anything else. This is called Callahan. This was based on the guy from the priest from Salem's Lot. And this is an oil painting. So this is on my in my gallery. So still available for purchase if you contact me through my website. That was a fun piece to do with the bats coming out of his head. So, anyway, so yeah, I've been doing mostly book covers for Bane. I've been doing a lot of book covers for Bane. I just completed a painting from Larry Correa's Monster Hunter series, Monster Hunters International. And I think I've done, I might have done maybe 8 book covers for him by now for that series. So that's a lot of fun. His books are great. And kind of like you're reading Hellboy or something, like, I could see his, if they were made into movies, they'd be like the Hellboy movies, the first 2 movies. I didn't see the third one, the remake, whatever you want to call that. But yeah, his books are great and fun to illustrate. So the newest one is called Bloodlines. And so that's also in my gallery for the show. And yeah, I've been doing fantasy and science fiction, mostly science fiction now for 25 plus years. Started out with Dungeons and Dragons, and I was on staff there for a while and did a lot of role-playing game products and book covers, and then Magic the Gathering, did a lot of cards for them. And then I switched over, not completely, but I started doing a lot of science fiction book covers. And Bane I've been with probably the longest. I've been doing a lot of work for them over the years. So it's been a lot of fun. Tony's great. Thanks, Tony. And now I'm trying to go, the one I just showed you, the Callahan painting, is kind of a new direction. It's you could say it's pop surrealism, I guess. It's I'm kind of steering myself in that direction a little bit because of I don't know, I've been doing science fiction and fantasy for a long time, and It's nice to change it up and try some different things. And I think I've been looking at a lot of work on Instagram that's been, every time it seems like when I see something new that I like that's kind of different yet creative, like science fiction and fantasy art, but just not, you can't look at it and say that's science fiction or fantasy. There's a different, something different about it. And every time I look at the hashtags, it's saying pop surrealism. So I'm thinking, well, maybe that's the direction I should go. I like drawing weird things, and I've always been a fan of surrealism, and I've always been a big pop culture fan. So I figured that would make sense. But I don't have a big body of work in that direction. So that's what I'm, I'm working on my own pieces for that. But and I have a bunch of ideas. I have a bunch of ideas to write. I wrote a children's book that I still need to illustrate, and I have a bunch of other ideas for children's books, which we'll see if they ever come about. But it's the thing, you have so many ideas, and then which ones actually stick, which ones see the light of day or not, remains to be seen. So I am also, I've been doing, I'll show you, these are not in my gallery, but these are, so I've been doing Inktober, and Inktober has been good. It's been good for me because it's been quite challenging. I'm not very confident with pen and ink. I'm not very confident in quick sketches. So to force myself to do this every day for an entire month has been quite a challenge. So anyway, this is my first one, which I really like. I think I started off with a bang. This is probably my favorite one. Thank you. Yeah, I really, sometimes I don't know, if I'm sure many artists go through this, like you just sit down and draw or paint and you just come up with this idea and you're like, wow, where did that come from? And then sometimes, like I like this one too. There's a bunch in here that I like. I mean, I can't say that every single one I felt like I hit on, because I just start to draw. There's been a bunch that I've thrown out too that I just said that's not going anywhere. So most of these that you're going to see, I was pretty happy with, and I followed all the way through. There's no, when I sit down to do these, I'm not sitting down. There's no thumbnail that I'm working from, or there's no reference really in the beginning stages of it. When I start to come up with the ideas, it's it's just me doodling and scribbling around very lightly until I hit on some shapes that I like, and then I follow through with it with the pen and with the markers. So it's basically like what Copic or Micron pens or Copic pens, Prismacolor gray markers, and then that one never made it through. That's one of my thanks. Yeah, this one I did not finish because I just didn't like it for some reason. Just didn't like where it was going. It's a little dark, but it was I don't know, something about it just wasn't real thrilled about it. Didn't really love this one too much either. So I kind of got a little off track there, but this one I really liked a lot. And I think because of the way, let me think now how this is going. Yeah, I think everything that you're seeing is, I don't know if you're seeing everything in reverse or not. It feels like you are, the way the camera's set up. Yeah. So yeah, so this is like what, we're on day 24 now, 25, I guess it is. This is one of my favorite ones. I really like that. I like doing pumpkin heads for some reason. I did one painting for a role-playing game called Deadlands a while ago, and it was like this, supposed to be this mortician. Does the procedure differ when versus other types of work? So with book cover work, book cover work tends to be, at least from my experience, I'm reading from a manuscript a lot of the time, sometimes not, sometimes the manuscript's not finished. So if I'm lucky, I'd rather read from a manuscript and get an idea of the story and the character, the detail on the characters, things like that. I work up sketches that way. Once I've read enough of the book, I usually don't read all the way to the end because I don't want to give away the end of the story in the cover. But I'll get about halfway, 3/4 of the way through the book, and then I'll stop and try to come up with some ideas. I take notes along the way. There's a couple things. I mean, when you're working on a book cover, for the most part, I've found that they want to have heroic characters on the cover, very attractive characters on the cover. Sometimes they want action, sometimes they don't. I know with Baen books in particular, they like to have a female on the cover. They like to have the main character on the cover. I think those are really the only restrictions. They're not even restrictions, but the requests that they have, for me at least. Mine are pretty character driven. You have to leave space on the top for the title and on somewhere for the author, so that you have to keep that in mind and try not to keep those areas too busy, with whether it be contrast or whether it be things flying around, different things going on. You try to keep the focal point between where the text is going to be. So there's that. Other than that, I mean, I think every job kind of has different guidelines. Magic the Gathering, has, there's a different format. For a while there, they had just a rectangular format, which is quite different from a vertical. I'm doing work now for a secret project that's a card game that's coming out, and those pieces of art have to be vertical. I can show you. I have some more here. I can only show 3 of these because it's a secret project, but this is one of them. So it's a werewolf. Of course, you're getting a glare from the light, but yeah. So so this is vertical, but there's a text box that's going to go like right here. So it covers quite a bit of it. And then a small text box that goes across the top here. So you try to keep, yeah, thanks. So you try to keep the main part, the focal point obviously is his head and, this torso. So, but if someone wanted to buy the painting, they would, you don't want to just keep down here, or you don't want to keep this just nothing. You want to keep it still exciting so that people can have a nice painting when they purchase it. But, so there's all different kinds of restrictions and requirements depending on the job. I think with science fiction, for me, the reason pop surrealism has become interesting to me is because there's really no restrictions. I think that's what it is. You can do science fiction-y and fantasy subject matter, but because it's not a hardcore genre, it's like you pretty much can do whatever you want, as weird as you want. It doesn't have to be attractive people. It doesn't have to be heroic people. It could be whatever. It could be animal people. It could be distorted faces, like this one that I did. Like that wouldn't fly for a book cover. That's not a heroic person and playing a mandolin. So it's just too weird for a book cover. Like they wouldn't want that. So that's the fun about doing more pop surrealism type of a thing. And but the book cover art's great. I like seeing my work in the bookstore. That's a lot of fun to see your work printed and published. And I think for me, the fun of doing a book cover is trying to capture a scene out of the book, or capture the character that the author created. And when the author can contact you and say, wow, you really nailed that character. It's looked just the way I thought of, you know, envision the character being looking. You nailed it. And so that's a great feeling. That's what I try to do every single time. So sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't, but that's my goal anyway when doing a book cover. So it's different when you're doing like a card game for Magic or whatever, because usually it's not. You might get some that where it's character driven, where you know you have to create a particular character that's already been designed, and they want you to put your spin on the character. So they'll give you a style guide, and you have to keep that character design pretty close to, you know, so people recognize the character. But a lot of times I get asked to do actions, you know, different things where it's magic or some sort of action is taking place where someone's being thrown back or something's exploding, or, you know, there's a fire, you know, whatever, like a fire wave or a fireball or something like that, where, you know, that's the main thing they want to see. So you're not focused on people so much. But yeah, there's all different kinds of requirements. So what else can I show you? Does anybody read? I read this. Ever read this book? Yeah, I'm a big Stephen King fan. So and that's his son, Joe Hill. I really liked the book, actually. I wasn't sure. I've never read any of Joe Hill's books, so I didn't know if I was going to like it. But it's pretty cool. It has a little bit of a I like books that go through time travel and time warps and going through into other dimensions. I like things like that. So there's a little bit of that in the book. Not quite like Stephen King's what is it, 11/22/63, the JFK book, which I really liked a lot too. It's kind of like has a little part of that, like a little moment that's similar to the way that book is, where they go back in time. But this isn't going back in time. There's like a portal where the girl can go through this portal that she creates in her mind and can go anywhere she wants to go through the portal. So it's kind of cool. And I think they have an AMC, on AMC, they have a series for this, which I have yet to see. You know how that goes. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it doesn't match up to the book. So not really sure about that one, but the book was good. The book was really good. I'm trying to think what else I read recently, but that was a good one. I'm reading right now Clive Barker's The Great and Secret Show. So I'm about 100 pages into that. So that's already kind of strange. If you've ever read Clive Barker, you know what I mean. The Thief of Always was probably the last book I read about 4 months ago. And that was great. I really liked that one. Like written kind of like Neil Gaiman's Graveyard Book, where it's kind of for, I don't want to say it's for kids because there's kids in it, but it's kind of written more like a fairy tale kind of a thing, I guess you could say. But there's a lot of adult moments in it and scary moments in it. So I wouldn't necessarily, maybe a young adult more so, you know, teenager more so than a little kid. I wouldn't read it to a little kid, I don't think. So, but yeah, I've recently gotten into reading books. I read books for a living. That's the thing. So when you read books for a living, then finding times to read on your own is not so easy. Let's see, I got a question here. Yeah, Fledgling and Country of the Blind are two of my favorite covers. I like those covers a lot. And both of them are different in that the Fledgling was done digitally, and Country of the Blind was done with oils. And in the Country of the Blind was actually 3 feet by 4 feet, which is the largest painting I've ever done. So that was a lot of fun, and it was on the cover of Spectrum, so that was really a great piece for me. And fledgling was a lot of fun too. I had a great, young model for that. The cat I figured out on my own, but the girl was definitely a model. So process for digital work is, well, I use Corel Painter. That's mainly what I use. I use Photoshop, but it's mostly for editing and just tweaking things. But the actual painting is done in Corel Painter. Most of my drawing, except for these pen and ink things that I do for myself, most of the drawing that I've been doing has been in Corel Painter with a Wacom tablet and a pen. And so I mean, so to describe the process, basically, I start out with the drawing, I get it approved by the company that I'm doing it for, and then I have to work up, much like I would do traditionally, I have to work up a better drawing, a tight, finished drawing. So I use a lot of reference. I use, actual people to pose for me for the, if there's people in the painting, they'll pose for me. So I'll take my own photographs. I look up a lot of photo reference online and piece things together until I get a finished drawing that I'm happy with. And then once it's finished, then first thing I do is create a layer in Corel Painter, and I use a brush that's called Simple Water, which is like a digital watercolor brush. But what I like about it is that if you have your Corel Painter, if you have it set that you're working on a textural background, like your canvas is, the original surface is set for like a textural effect. When you use a Simple Water over it, the texture will come through. You'll still see the texture, which is kind of nice. And it's just like a very, very saturated, transparent wash that you can put down. So I lay down a lot of local color over the whole thing and just kind of play around with that. And you can do several layers. You can keep creating a layer, and keep tweaking it and adding some more darker layers into, and I kind of render it up a little bit like that. And then sometimes I start off before I add those color layers. Sometimes I start off where I actually render everything. So I'll do almost a full black and white rendered image. Maybe sometimes I'll just do rendered, the main characters will be rendered, the creatures, characters, the main focal point will be rendered. The background, maybe not so much. Maybe I'll do that first and then lay over some transparent washes with the Simple Water brush. And then I think I do quite a few layers using Simple Water brush just to kind of tweak the color and the contrast. And when you have that underpainting, that rendered black and white underpainting under it, and you start laying the transparent washes over it, it comes together pretty fast. And then once I do that, then I go in with a brush that's called just a detail brush. It's basically supposed to be like using a Winsor Newton Series 7, paintbrush. It's like a fine tip brush for oil, and then I use that. I really don't use too many other brushes. It's really like the Simple Water and the brush, and I use like a grainy blender that's in there. It's called Grainy Blender, and I use that for blending in spots. But for the most part, it's those two brushes. I don't really do too many other things with Corel Painter. It's pretty simple. And then when I get it to where I'm happy with it, I can bring it into Photoshop, and you can completely change the whole color scheme in Photoshop if you want. There's ways to tweak it and push and pull different things to make it really sparkle. I do have through my Instagram feed in my bio, I do have a link to my Patreon page, which has a lot of tutorials how I paint. There's traditional tutorials there where I'm painting with oils. Right now, I don't know if there's any digital paintings on there yet as far as tutorials, but that's in the works. I have a ton of them. I just haven't put them up there. So step by steps and things like that. So and there's 2 tiers on the Patreon. There's a $5 and a $10 for that. So that's just patreon.com/Alan Pollack. It's pretty simple to find me on there. Or like I said in my Instagram feed in the bio, there's a link you can click on and find that. So that'll probably be the most helpful thing, because then you can actually see me do it. And I really good in Patreon when I'm painting. I am basically doing what I'm doing now, which is just talking to myself and explaining everything, what I'm doing, why I'm doing what I'm doing. And if I make a mistake in my mind, if I do something I didn't like, I tell you, didn't want to do that. And then I try to fix it, and you can watch me fix it. And it's pretty candid, I mean, I don't really hide anything when I'm working in Patreon, when I'm doing the tutorials, because I want you to see that it's just not all magic. There's we're human beings, so we do make mistakes, and we do things that we didn't want to do, or we change things as we're going along, and discover things that we didn't expect. So there's lots of things that go into it. And I tell stories, of course, as I'm going along, because I'm talking to myself. So I do a lot of reflection on things, and when I was a kid, and this movie I saw, and this book that I read, and whatever. So I think it's a lot of fun and interesting. It's for people that want to learn. It's not for everybody, obviously. It's for people that actually want to either like watching people paint or want to learn. So so it's pretty cool. So hopefully you check that out. And if there's any other questions, we still have another half hour, something like that. So I can keep yapping. I can show you some more art too. Let's see, what's the next one here? Oh, this is a good one. So this is my other that was for Inktober as well. Let me see this. Yeah. As far as Society 6, I haven't explored other vendors. I wasn't even thinking of doing it, to be honest with you. My wife knew about it and mentioned it to me, and I was just like, I don't know if I really want to do that. And she kept reminding me of it, and she's like, it'd be a great way to get your work on some product and things. And I thought, okay, I'll do it, whatever. So I did it. I think it's great as far as, I've showed a couple of the things, it's like, the clock here. I have a clock. Oh, this is my, in the country of the blind mug, coffee mug that I have, which is cool. So, I think the quality is pretty good. The only downside for me is that I don't get a great cut from them. That's the downside. So, but the thing is, they're buying all the product. They buy all the product and print it and ship it, and I don't have to do any of that. So that's the upside to it. And as far as if there's, John, if you know any other places that give the artist a better cut, surely let me know. But I haven't explored it much, to be honest with you. So I just, did it, and it's up there. And I think the quality's fine. I think the quality's good. But just for me, like I don't get a huge cut. As for the prints now, if you go to my website and click and go to the MileHiCon link, and within that there's a selection for prints, that takes you to a page for called Imprint, which is a different place, a different website that has my prints up for sale. And they actually give me a 50/50 cut, which is, you can't really ask for more than that because they're doing all the printing and the shipping. I don't have to do anything. So their cut is much better for me. So I highly recommend them. And I noticed a lot of other artists that I familiar with that are on there. So I know that it's a decent place. And they're connected to Beautiful Bazaar Magazine and Haven Gallery. So they all work. They're all in conjunction with each other. So that's pretty cool. So so I think that will work out pretty well. Yep. So this is my the creature drawing I did. And a little Nosferatu. And a werewolf. And some sort of demon-y looking thing. These are all on my Instagram feed. I've been doing, like I said, I've been doing Inktober. And a cutesy kitten. So how did I start as an artist? Well, I've been drawing and painting, not painting, I've been drawing since I was a little kid. Thankfully, my parents and my grandmother, really, my dad's dad, was very supportive, which helps because as a kid, you get told you're not that good quite often, unfortunately, or you're not encouraged. I think probably because of the starving artist thing. I think a lot of parents are like, don't do that. Don't be an artist. But I was fortunate where, I didn't have that situation. I had support, encouragement, which is great. So, I'd always enjoyed drawing all the way up through grade school and went into college and just took classes for skills. I didn't really get a degree or anything like that. I just went to get better at being an artist. And I guess the first thing I did was build a portfolio of about 12 pieces. And my first portfolio was probably more on the editorial side, oil paintings, but they were, I was more on the editorial side. I wasn't aware in the beginning, I wasn't aware of the book covers. I don't know why, but when I was in my early 20s, I guess I wasn't a big reader. So I didn't realize the huge science fiction section, fantasy section at the bookstore. I had read Creepy and Eerie magazine when I was a kid. So those were all covers with Frank Frazetta and Boris and Ken Kelly and Sanuli and whoever else was on there. Just tons of great art. But I don't even know if those magazines were around when I was getting ready to go out to the freelance world. So I wasn't aware of how to make it as a fantasy or science fiction illustrator. So I was going in as an editorial artist, and I was building a portfolio and taking classes in New York City. And then at some point I was at a mall, and I went into a gaming store. I didn't play Dungeons and Dragons, so I didn't even know what any of that was. And so when I went to the gaming store and I saw all these box covers and magazine covers with dragons and trolls and ogres and all kinds of crazy stuff going on, I felt like, wow, like I can't even believe there's like all this product like with cool work on it. I could be doing this. This is way more fun. I mean, I grew up like in horror and science fiction and fantasy. But I didn't know that there was a way to make a living doing that. So once I saw that, then I changed my portfolio and I started painting more pictures that were geared towards fantasy and a little bit on the horror side, not really science fiction. It was more fantasy and horror. unfortunately with the horror, the book covers at the time for horror was not what you would want. It wasn't like Creepy and Eerie magazine. It was more like a still life. It was like a skull on a table, or, you know, a candle on a table, or a house with a, you know, window with someone in the window in the background, or, you know, a knife on a table. Like that's kind of how the book covers were back then. So I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to do monsters. I wanted to do something creepier than that. And so I had some of that in my portfolio. And of course I wasn't great when I first started out. So that was part of the problem. So I got rejected a lot. I was going into New York City with my portfolio and bringing my portfolio around to book companies, and sometimes getting a response, which is better than not, and sometimes not getting a response. And I was just told over and over again that I really wasn't, either I wasn't ready or it wasn't what they were looking for or whatever, which is basically all saying the same thing. So I kept at it, you know, and eventually I steered my work enough towards fantasy where I was able to send some samples to them, to their art director for Dragon magazine. And they sent me a letter back saying, we would love to use you for one of our covers, which was like the greatest thing in the world. I couldn't even believe it. And that's really what started it. Once they gave me one cover, I did the best I could with it, and they liked it. And then they gave me another cover for Dragon magazine, or Dungeon. I did them both, Dungeon and Dragon magazine. And I did some interior work for them as well. And then it just continued. Eventually what happened was I got an agent in New York City, and they started getting me work. And that was okay. They got me one book cover that was based on a Magic the Gathering, some sort of story for Magic the Gathering. And then like a young adult suicide story. It was really weird. It was like a suicide note on the edge of a cliff. Like it wasn't a lot of fun to paint. It was just like whatever, but it was a job. And so eventually what happened was Dungeons and Dragons, one of the art directors there that I was working with, I started to do interior work for some of their products. And the art director said, you know, we're looking for a staff artist. Would you be interested? And I said, sure, I would love that. That'd be great. So they put me in the mix for a staff artist. And then there was the toy show in New York City, and one of the art directors was going to be there, the head art director, and they wanted to know if I wanted to meet them in New York City at the toy show. So I did. I went in with my portfolio and I sat down with them, and they hired me right there on the spot. So that was great. I mean, I had no idea how to do that, how to get started, how to get work. And I figured it out, and it worked. And so once I got hired to staff, then I was working with Jeff Easley and Fred Fields and Paul Jacques, Dana Knutson, Tony Sudlow, Rob Rupel. Hope I'm not leaving anybody out. But it was amazing. It was amazing. So that's how I got started. I have a question here for the medium for the sketches. So the sketches were done with, Prismacolor. Can you see that? I think you can see that. Yeah, these are just Prismacolor Premier gray markers. And I'm using like a 40% and a 60%. And then I have this Prismacolor Premier Blender. It's just, you know, it's not the best side. So it's just like a white, well, it has black on it because you're using it to blend the color. So you put down the darker color and the lighter color, and you're blending them together with this because it's just pure solvent, I guess. But it gets some black on it after a while from doing that. And so that's what I do for some of the darker, transitional shading. But then I have, let me see. The one pen that I have that I really been using a lot is this. It's just a Sharpie, but it's like a Sharpie pen. And it's like a, I want to say it's like a 0.5. It's somewhere in there, like, or maybe it's bigger than, maybe it's more of a 0.1, 0.5, 0.1, I don't know, whatever one's the biggest. Or you can use, like, I have this Copic's good, and also Micron. They're just really good, you know, fine point, you know, really fine point. So you can see that, there you go. You know, fine point, super fine point. That's really it. And then for the white, I have, you know, this jelly roll. See, yeah, jelly roll. And these are, I mean, I haven't found anything better. I forget, some guy that I was following, I think his name's Jack Stella, and he does a similar, I think he's better than I am at it. I'm not very good at it, to be honest with you. I'm okay at it, but he does really great pen and ink work, and he was using these jelly roll pens, and they're pretty good, but they're tricky. They're not as smooth as the Microns, so they're, sometimes you go to write and then there's no color coming out. Sometimes it works wonderfully. It worked pretty well in this one. I posed for that one. The paper is Strathmore. It's just like this 5x7 tone paper, you know. So, you know, it's just a tone paper, you know. And they have one, this is, it doesn't say on here exactly what it is, but they have one that's like more of a cool gray and a warm gray, and I think this is the cool gray one. And I do have a warm gray one as well, but then they do sell warm gray, Prismacolor gray markers that are warm and not cool. So if I was going to use the warmer tone Strathmore paper, I would use the warm markers. But so far I'm using just the cool markers with the cool paper. This is the one I think this one I just posted yesterday. So my Instagram feed, if you go to my website, you'll find it. But if you don't know my Instagram feed, it's Pollack. It's at PollackArt64, and that is my Instagram feed. And I have all of these and a whole bunch of other stuff. I have some videos on there, and time lapses, tutorials, you know, all that kind of stuff, and just daily nonsense that I post. Like I had, I posted breakfast the other day. My wife made, yeah, that's it. Pollack Art 64, 2 L's, yeah. So my wife was making eggs the other morning, and we do like this soft boiled egg and boiling water kind of thing, and she's supposed to time it, and we were talking, and she didn't time it, and I forgot to remind her, the whole thing, you know how it goes. So basically what happened was, she's like, well, I'm just going to check one of them now and make sure, you know, if it's undercooked, we'll let them go, we'll just throw another egg in or whatever. And she cracked it open, and the yolk just kind of rolled out of the egg white, like it wasn't completely solid, it was kind of gelatinous, you know, but it stayed intact. And it looked to me like the Blob from the movie, the original movie, The Blob. So that's what I posted, just the egg yolk rolling around on my plate, which was stupid, but I thought it was funny. So anyway, what else do you want to know? Any other questions? I think that's the last one I had. Yeah. So where's the other one? Oh yeah, that was the other. That was from the day before yesterday. And oh, I know where it is. Today's drawing I did not post yet. And this is just the start of it. So that's just with, you know, a pencil drawing, and then the Copic pen, and I just did some basic outline on it. And most of these are horror, of course, because it is October and it's Halloween. So that's, you know, I'm trying to do mostly scary stuff. But anyway, how do you feel the market has changed since you got started? Well, for me, it's changed quite a bit. I have about 10 minutes left in this, so see what I can cover. I guess the thing that for me that's changed is when I first started out, the way that I got work was bringing my work to conventions, you know, hanging my work in the art show, and art directors would show up from different companies. There was a budget for that. So when you went to these conventions, you know, you could meet other artists, and then later on you would, you know, if you were fortunate enough, you'd go out to dinner with a bunch of them. There would be art directors there. You would get to talking to them. There was a lot of networking and schmoozing, and then there would be parties at night, the publisher parties they would have, and you would get to network and meet all these people that were, you know, were in charge of hiring artists. So then the next day, you know, they'd come down and look at your art show and see your artwork hanging, and then if you were lucky enough, within a week or two, you would get an email from them, and we want you to do a cover for us. So that worked out great, and that's how I got used to being hired. As time has gone on, and things have changed because there's been more digital art, so companies have switched. A lot of companies have switched their style, the look of their books, and has gone more digital. So a lot of the guys that I know that are doing painted traditional paintings, they're not on the covers anymore because they wanted this photoshoppy digital look. That seems to be the way it's swung for now, at least. So that's changed a lot. The way to get work, they don't really, I mean, for a while there, I started hearing they were going to, you know, they weren't going to be doing the publishers parties anymore. They have slowed down, they've cut back on them. So that's changed quite a bit. Nowadays, you can do a lot of your own marketing for yourself, which is a challenge. If you're not familiar with how to do that, or you don't, I mean, you can look up online and, you know, follow tutorials and join webinars and do all that kind of stuff, but it's doing it yourself. Most artists want to paint. They don't want to market. They don't want to advertise, but that has become part of it, doing it yourself. If you're doing it yourself, the upside is that you're in control of everything you're doing. You can create your own product, your own book. You can do Kickstarter. You can do, you know, you have social media. If you get a large enough following on social media, your fans can help be supportive and be part of you actually putting out your own product, which is way different from the way it used to be. So I don't know if that answers all your questions, but it is different in a lot of ways. And, you know, and now I'm sure they've cut back on the amount of books they're publishing, which means, you know, cut back on the amount of artists they're using per year. A lot of things are, you know, they have ebooks now, so there's that. So they probably, you know, a lot of ebooks, sometimes ebooks are reprints, sometimes they're new art, so the pay scale might be different, as opposed to something that's being printed. So, you know, different things like that, you know. Any other questions? I think I have 7 minutes. 7 minutes left. Trying to think what else I can tell you. Yeah, for now, I mean, like I said, I'm mostly trying to get people to my Patreon page, which is patreon.com / Alan Pollack. And you can be a patron and you could help support my projects, and you get a lot of free tutorials and insight to my studio. I play mandolin and guitar, so I'll be doing all that kind of stuff on there. It's more of a personal connection with the artist is really what it's about. So you know, I think that's really good. I always, you know, say that, you know, hey, back in the day when I was a kid and I was a big Kiss fan, how cool would it have been to see like Kiss when they were starting out, or, when they first got got their first album. You could see behind the scenes of them writing a song, or see them hanging out in their studio recording, or see them writing or see them in an argument, whatever it may be. But just getting that behind the scenes access to footage, and you can ask them questions directly, and all that kind of stuff. I think that's what Patreon to me is all about. 5 more minutes. What does your daily schedule look like? My daily schedule basically is I try to get up by like 6:37, somewhere in there. And with Inktober, I've been doing that first. I get up and I make some breakfast, and then I've been doing Inktober, try to get that drawing out first. And then I have a project I'm working on right now that's like a secret project, so I can't tell you all what it's about, but it's a game. And so I have to do sketches for that, and then of course paintings once the sketches are approved. So I basically do that. I stop for lunch at some point. I try to fit in a half hour to 45 minutes of exercise every day, because I sit a lot, which is not very healthy. So I try to do that. And then I do cook. My wife and I both cook, but depending on our schedules, we take turns. So I do that. Sometimes I work at night. Sometimes I'll work at night until 12, 1 in the morning, depending if there's a deadline or not. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes after dinner, I just stop and I hang out with my wife, or read, or play my mandolin or my guitar, or something like that, watch a movie. So it varies. I try not to keep it the same every day, keep it exciting. And I'm working on my own stuff. Like I said, that this is the last one, the newest one that I was working on. It's not really up anywhere. It's on my Instagram feed, but it's not really on my website yet. So trying to keep up on doing my own paintings, and keep new ideas flowing. That's very important. So any other questions? I have 3 minutes left. And I got a new follower on Instagram as we're sitting here. Do I have favorite idea sources? Honestly, favorite idea sources would be movies, video games, life, going out in nature, being around people, which we can't really do so much of lately. But my website address is alanpollack.com. And yeah, right there. And yeah, I mean, really anything, movies, video games, lots of really great art on Instagram and Pinterest. So that's definitely a big, reading books. That's a big one for me as well. So, but just being out in life, nature, seeing people, you get a lot of ideas just by, doing that. My website is run through Wix.com, so I do it all. It's really easy. Wix is great. I didn't pay anybody to do it. They have their own templates, and all you got to do there is, and you can create a template for free and have a website for free, but you'll have ads on it. So Wix.com, WIX is great, and you can maintain it and update it all yourself. It's great. I think I have about less than a minute here, so yeah, 1 minute left. So thank you all for coming by, and you can DM me through Instagram if you're there. That's at PollackArt64, and go to my website. There's the link for MileHiCon there. You can check out my art. There's prints and merchandise you can get through there, and maybe follow me on Patreon too, patreon.com/Alan Pollack. And I appreciate you coming out. I think I have like 30 seconds. It's different when you have, like, if you're on TV and you have a cameraman going 3, 2, 1, that whole thing. I'm like holding up 4 for 3, whatever. You know what I mean. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, that's it. Take care, guys.